Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, we could really use your help. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, recently named the Too Opinionated podcast one of its top 100 podcasts. This is a monumental feat for this program. You know, we're a father and son team out of a small town in West Virginia, have been doing this for about 5 years. There's 15 million podcasts out there. About 40,000 of those get to the point that they're listed on IMDb. Out of those 40,000 out of the 15 million, we were ranked number 82. Something that we're just immensely proud of. We're so thankful for our listeners, our watchers, our fans. Thank you so, so much. If you would like to help us out, and we're asking for it, please. It's easy. It's really easy. It's free. If you go to IMDb, that's imdb.com, look up Too Opinionated Podcast, and just take a look at the page. That's all you have to do. I mean, you're welcome to look at the cast, look at the episodes so you can kind of see who's been on the program. Do whatever you want. But even just bringing up the page, imdb.com, Too Opinionated Podcast, bring up the page, look at it. That helps us so much. So please, if you can do anything, we would really appreciate that. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Love to have your subscription there. It's also free. And you can also check out our website, meistercon.com, where you'll find almost 700 episodes, audio and video, available on there. There's also a terrific blog from Brett, and it'll let you know anything that we have going on in studio, if we're covering a convention, if we're going on location, anything that we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so, so much. We appreciate you so much. I can't express enough how appreciative we are of all of you. We never expected to do as well as we have, and that's all because of you. Thank you so much. Enjoy that interview. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. We've been trying to do this interview for like a week now, but because of the weather system going through, it's taken us 3 or 4 times, but we're here today, and we're going to talk about the new movie, Peter 5'8". I've got the writer-director, Michael Hall, and one of his actresses, Jet Jandreau, with me. So welcome to you both, Mike and Jet.
Thanks, Mike. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Mike. Lovely to be here.
I know. I'm so excited to talk with you. I was really nervous when we postponed last week, which was my fault, because I was afraid we wouldn't reschedule. And I think the movie looks so good. I'm excited to talk to it. So thank you both for hanging in there.
Absolutely. We were talking about this in the intro, but there's some weather going around. So we're rolling with the punches here, Mike.
It's not just us. There's a lot of people struggling right now.
Very much so.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, I think we canceled last Tuesday, and then we had to cancel this Tuesday for me. And I was like, no. Why?
I know. But we hung in there. Well, and then I had to cancel yesterday because we still didn't have power.
Right.
Now
exactly.
we're here.
Crazy.
My son Brett, who does the podcast with me, he called me just as I was leaving the house to come to the studio, and he says, I had a mattress delivered today. Would you mind putting that on my back porch? Because he's not home. He's a librarian during the day, so he's at the library. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, okay. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, that's probably not light. How am I going to move that? You know, because it's down a flight of stairs, around the back, and then back up a flight of stairs to get it up on the deck.
Yeah.
Well, I got it done, but needless to say, I had to like calm down on the way over. I was sweating. I'm like, we've had to reschedule this interview 3 times, and I'm going to show up sweaty.
One time for the mattress, you gotta.
Hey, and I told him, I was like, I don't think anybody would take that off your front porch. It's heavy. Yeah. But I knew as soon as I left it, it was going to be gone. He'd show up and it'd be gone. So.
Well, moving a mattress is not trivial. That's I applaud that you got that done, Mike.
I know, and it's in a box.
Oh.
Mattresses are heavy enough and hard to maneuver on their own. Stick it in a box where you got no handles or anything.
Have handles, yes.
Yeah, terrible. So Mike, let's start with you. So the movie is Peter 5'8". So tell us a little bit about it. Where'd the idea come from? How'd you get attached to it? Give us some background on it.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you mentioned. I believe you said your son is a librarian. Is that?
He is, yeah.
Yeah. So, funny enough, the origins of this movie start in a library. I was a library kid. I spent a lot of time in the public library,
Me too.
and fantastic. We have that in common. And I was an avid reader. I got I got books and movies both from the library. This was in Colorado, and my favorite authors were the hard-boiled pulp authors.
Yeah.
So we're talking preteen years into early teen years. I went through every book by Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, Mickey Spillane, uh, the whole gamut of hard-boiled pulp authors. And I got into those books before I got into the film adaptations.
Yeah.
I actually, around the same period in my life, I had a mentor who was in the film industry prior, kind of took me under his wing, and he showed me cinema. He was an Italian man. Turns out he was Federico Fellini's driver in the 60s,
wow.
his personal driver. So he was driving Federico to and from the sets of 8½, and La Strada, and all these fantastic Italian films. So he showed me Italian films, and then he took it upon himself to show me noir, in particular 1940s noir. And this dovetailed perfectly into my life, because I had already been reading these authors.
Yeah.
So I then got heavily into the film adaptations and devoured them. And my mentor Bruno actually had a screening program in the library where he would show 35 millimeter, sometimes 16 millimeter prints of classic noirs and Italian cinema multiple times a week. And so I would sit in these screenings like I was in church, and just soak it up. And so that's where I would say the seeds of Peter 5'8" were planted. So we're talking films like Out of the Past, films like Active Violence, films like Leave Her to Heaven, and of course all the Bogey classics.
Yeah.
So I love these films, and to this day, that's still my happy place in terms of film viewing. I can watch these things all night. What I like about these films is the melodrama, the eccentricity, the smallness of them. That's something I think neo noirs, for me, often don't capture. They don't have the feel of these films from the late 30s, 40s into the 50s, where there's certain ingredients that add up to the experience, and it's the style of acting, it's the style of music. There's some great recent neo noirs. I really enjoyed Nightmare Alley by Guillermo, but
really good. Yeah.
Fantastic film. But to me, it's very different from the source material. The original films don't have big sets. They don't have big lights. They don't have cameras gliding through these big sets and big lights and these extravagant set pieces. They're small. They're eccentric. They're funny. They're very comical films. And so that was the intention with Peter 5'8", was to create a modern film that was done in this style. For the acting to be done in this style, to be done in a melodramatic style, for the score to be a period score, and the goal would be a film that you can watch on the same night as Out of the Past, the same night as Active Violence, same night as Leave Her to Heaven, and have it flow. And so that hopefully gives you a little idea of where the seeds were planted for this film.
Yeah, I actually love all of that. So I grew up watching those type of movies with my mother. She was a big fan, and they would show kind of the detective movies or the noir, that type of stuff late at night. So she would, a couple times a week, she'd let me stay up late and watch one of those
Oh,
movies with
fantastic.
her and stuff. So I'm a big fan of that. And it also gave me a love of that time period because cinema at that time was based more on the writing. You know, it was
Yes.
about the story and it wasn't so much effects heavy. And we've
Yes.
kind of gotten away from that. So I totally get what you're saying about Nightmare Alley. Great film,
Yeah.
but not exactly what you're talking about because we really don't make movies like that anymore.
Oh boy,
It's
music to my
exciting
ears.
just hearing that you're doing that.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And again, I enjoyed Nightmare Alley, but it's something else. It's a different animal. So
Right.
the exercise, if you will, with Peter 5'8" was, what if we took that acting style, that music and score, and that style of photography, that way of staging a scene, and they're small scenes, they're small sets, there's small number of characters, and for me, a film is just like a meal. You need to create the exact dish. You need the exact ingredients. You know, you're not going to end up with an out of the past or an act of violence if you have different ingredients. Our intention was to keep it small, to stage the scenes the way they're staged in these movies. And Jet, who's on the interview with us, did fantastic work. And she's, by the way, a very adept film buff that understands these films very well in creating a performance that's in the style of the period. So it's a modern film that's rendered with a 1940s brush.
Yeah, love that. So Jet, talk a little bit about, what's the character that you play? What's her role in the film?
Yeah, so I play the character of Sam, and she is a glamorous real estate agent who has a big secret to hide, and she lives in a small town, a small alpine mountainous little town, in the middle of nowhere, and with funny characters, interesting neighbors, the likes that you get in a small town.
Right.
And she's hiding. She's hiding. She's changed her name, her job description, her life, everything attached to that. And she's living she has escaped from her past,
Right.
basically. And there is a sort of a dark cell, a dark entity that encroaches into this um, alpine technicolor little town, and is looking for her, and is coming to is the agency of for her to confront her past. And that happens to be the detective, played the charismatic detective, I should say, that's played by no other than Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
And her best friend Sam is at the real estate office, is played by the legendary Rebecca De Mornay as well.
I
And
know you're on stage with like some actual legends as actors. Pretty
absolutely
amazing.
Yeah, so we have a great little troupe involved in this Technicolor noir picture we made.
Yeah, I love that. And you seem like if I saw you in one of those movies from back in the 50s, you would seem like you'd fit right into that. You got kind of that look and that sound.
Yeah.
Totally see you in that type role. I realize this is more of a modern retelling of that genre, but I think you would fit with those
Well,
movies.
you're spot on with that, and and as a fan and a connoisseur of the classic starlets, Jet and I worked on one film prior, a much smaller film called Hotel Dunsmuir, which was filmed in the same area. And it was clear to me in working with Jen on that film that she actually had exactly what you're talking about, that old Hollywood quality.
Yeah.
And then was very surprised to learn that Jet is a huge film buff and understands all this source material, and she can act in that style, which is quite, I don't know many young actresses that can do that actually understand the period, that understand the transatlantic accent, that understand the melodramatic performance. Jet can do that, and then she can transition on her next film into a naturalistic modern style, which is quite impressive for me. Who, you know, as I can write, I can direct. I don't understand the magic of acting. I just watch it, and it's like alchemy to me. So, Jet's a real talent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Wow.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I love accents. I love voice work. I feel like that helps find the character for each character that one does. But in particular, what me and Mike connected on so much was the 1940s, old classic cinema from Hollywood's golden age, and that is absolutely my favorite niche in cinema history. There's quite a few amazing, parts in cinema history up to date, but the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, it's absolutely the classics. And I grew up watching, admiring, loving Betty Davis.
Yeah,
Betty
cool.
Davis, Vivian Leigh, and of course, Katharine Hepburn and the other ones that followed. But Mike actually introduced me to my most favorite, and the one I didn't know of before, which is Jean Tierney, and she's sort of the American version of Vivian Leigh, and she's just gorgeous and full of high drama and flashes of the eyes and these big red lips, and you don't know what she's thinking, but she's calculating something. The epitome of a femme fatale. And Jean Tierney starred in this little cult classic from the 1940s called Leave Her to Heaven. It happens to be one of Scorsese's favorite films from the 40s, but even to someone like me who loves that genre, I'd never heard of it before. And Peter 5'8" is actually a great homage to this movie. And if you watch it, if you watch both movies, you'll see that there's a scene at the end of our movie in Peter that we give great homage to Jean Tierney in Leave Her to Heaven. So
Love that. And that's a great name. I haven't heard that name in a while. Yeah,
Oh,
she was
yeah.
terrific.
Yes,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
yes, amazing. I'm just gorgeous through and through. Talent, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do have some Easter eggs to these old movies in there for the adept film buffs that are watching. And,
I may have to watch it with my mother. I may have to invite her, which means my father will come too. You can't leave him out. But I'll bring him to the studio and we'll do a little family movie night.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think this movie is for everyone, because even though it has that old classic style and the melodrama with that Jean Tierney aspect, it does have the detective intrigue. It has a lot of action, and leading up to the end is quite surprising. And but I think it's for everyone. I think everyone will see little bits that they enjoy from this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty great. So Mike, talk about the casting a little bit, because pretty amazing cast, and Jet, you're definitely included in that. But how did you put that together? Did you have somebody that kind of worked on that for you, or did you already have people in mind going in?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and we did have a great casting director on the film named John Jackson, and he's worked with Alexander Payne. So he worked with Alexander Payne on About Schmidt, and he cast that with Kathy Bates and Jack Nicholson, and Sideways, and he worked on some great films. So I should definitely give full credit to John Jackson, who did some great work on this. And we have, as you mentioned, not only Kevin Spacey, but Rebecca De Mornay and Jake Weber as well. You might remember Jake from Homeland, and Jake's fantastic in it. Now, in terms of Kevin's involvement, I mean, that came down to the script, So surprisingly, Kevin, like everybody on this call, is a big film buff, and he loves films of this
I've heard
period.
that before about him. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a real pleasure. I mean, he's very self-aware of his place in cinema history. He's aware of his own filmography, and he's aware of all the filmographies that came before him. Before he broke out as an actor, he was a avid film buff, And he loves the source material, and he got all the references. And we talked, about his character and what would inform his character. And where there's references like Harry Lime from Third Man, for example, Orson Welles' character. So what really interested Kevin in this project was a chance to play in this world, to play in this 40s noir world, but it's not a period piece. It's an inversion of that. It's modern, and it's making callbacks, and it's having fun with it. And so for Kevin, this was just an opportunity to really choose some scenery in this world and have some fun with it. And he responded to the material. We spoke to him many times before we filmed this, and we talked about it, and we looked at it from different angles, and he eventually decided it was just too juicy to pass up.
Yeah, I think that's terrific, and kudos on getting Rebecca as well. She was probably one of the more popular actresses through the 80s and the 90s. I mean, she was everywhere. If you went to the movies, you had a decent shot that she was going to be in there, and she's such a good actress. And she's another one, Kevin, as well, that fit this genre.
Oh, completely. Yeah. And it was a thrill to bring Rebecca onto this. And funny enough, my father's favorite movie is Runaway Train. And he would play that constantly growing up. So I knew Rebecca from Runaway Train, and obviously Risky Business and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and all these great films. And like Jet, she does have that old Hollywood starlet quality in a very big way. And I agree with you. Rebecca's a legend. She's fantastic in the film, and her and Kevin had great chemistry, both on screen and off. Off screen, they were friends by the end of this. They were trading paperbacks, and they just hit it off fantastically. And Rebecca also stepped up in working with Kevin, where there's, especially at the time we filmed, prior to Kevin winning his trial in the UK, there was a bit of a stigma in working with Kevin, and she just loved the man and went for it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's however your feelings lie with that situation, it's terrific that we've got him back working, because he's so talented. I mean, he's probably one of our more talented actors, and just a shame not getting to see him work. So I love the fact that he's chosen this one to kind of make his entrance back. I know he's done a few little things, but this is his first kind of leading role in a while. Pretty exciting.
That's right. And thanks for saying that. Yeah, this is Kevin's first American film, since the scandal, and he's in this film from beginning to end. This is not a cameo by Kevin Spacey. This is Kevin crafting a new character and crafting a new entry in his filmography. And the reason we approached him with the project is that like you, we love his films, and I'm less interested in politics and innuendo online. What I'm interested in is film. So that's how I know Kevin Spacey, and that's the Kevin Spacey we wanted to work with. We wanted to work with the man from Glengarry Glen Ross, to use one example, one of my favorite Spacey performances. So he's fantastic, and for your listeners who are fans of Kevin Spacey, this is a chance to see him in a new American film. And you're right, he's done some small roles in some European pictures, but this is his first proper American comeback.
Yeah, terrific. Jet, I got to mention this before I forget. I always do I go around the family, and I'm like, where have you seen this person before with that? So I have no way of knowing if this is true or not, but both of my girls said that they remember you on an episode of Waverly Place, or Wizards of Waverly Place. Is that true?
Oh, that's so funny. Wow, I wasn't expecting that one. Yes, Selena Gomez, absolutely. I was a dancer.
That's what they said. You were a dancer.
I was way back in the day when I was a kid.
Well, that's what like I always like going to the kids, because they'll tell me stuff that I don't know. and you get that kind of person. I always go to my parents too, but 9 times out of 10, they have no idea who anybody is.
Well, I just learned something about Jet also. So thank your daughters for that.
How about that? How about
Wow,
that? Well, and I was like, and they said they think that was you because it's been a little while, but they were right. How about that?
Featured poodle skirt dancer. Yeah, that's fantastic. They have great eyes.
Yeah. Was that just a role, or did you have a dance background?
Oh yeah. I grew up singing and dancing. I was quite a little performer. But yeah, I did a lot of those Disney shows. Growing up, trying to find my feet in the industry. But I ended up actually doing a lot more work in Vienna and Austria. I'm half German, and I actually had my starting of my film career over there. And funny enough, on the set of Peter, I was in wardrobe, and Rebecca comes up to me and she starts not only speaking German but Austrian at me, and I was like, what is going on? I had no idea she actually grew up in a little town in Austria as well, and we were speaking Austrian in front of Kevin and the casting crew, and they really enjoyed it. So
That's pretty great. My brother spent some time in Austria and Wiesbaden, Germany, and he said that they have got a pretty good film industry over there.
Yes.
It took him a while to figure out what anybody was saying, but once he kind of figured that out, he was able to watch some stuff and enjoy it. So he said it was pretty good, but yeah,
it is.
that's awesome. I never would have expected that she would have been able to speak it though.
Oh, you and I both as surprised.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty great. And Mike, I know you did some work on a lot of Pixar stuff, and it was mostly visual, if I think like effects type of work. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a visual effects background, and there's a handful of directors that have come from the visual effects industry. There's Joseph Kosinski who did Top Gun 2, and funny enough, it's a pretty small knit community. I was in the very first kind of closed door screening of Tron Legacy, his first film, and I remember we were sitting there and we watched Tron Legacy, and Joseph seemed kind of nervous. It was his first film, and the first time he was showing it, and we were saying, "Oh boy, we don't know if this guy will make it." And well, I think he did all right for himself.
I think he did okay.
So prior to entering the visual effects industry, I was writing and directing. I mean, I wrote my first screenplay as a teenager, and I tried to make my first film as a teenager, and I've been at that for many years. And visual effects were a way for me to get onto big productions, to get onto big sets, and to watch directors I admired in their element. I mean, I spent a year in London working for Ridley Scott. I worked on Planet Terror for Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And Robert screened Italian horror movies like Zombie 2 for the crew to get us in the spirit. And
I kind of love that.
Oh yeah. Robert is really fun to work for, and Grindhouse was that was my entry into the visual effects film industry, and it was an interesting experience for me because we were getting what we call plates back from the set, and that's the raw footage.
Yeah.
Where we start adding the visual effects. And Quentin was shooting film on Death Proof, and Robert was shooting digital on Planet Terror. And I was looking at the footage from Planet Terror, and it was digital, and but I thought it looked very film-like. And Robert was using a certain camera system to shoot it. And ever since that time, I became very interested in this camera system and ended up actually acquiring it. And my first two small features were shot with it, which in my mind were almost little chapters to the Grindhouse mythos. So I made two little Grindhouse style films, and one of which was Hotel Dunsmuir, where Jet and I first worked together, and that's
It sounds like a Grindhouse film.
Yeah, well, it's sort of between
great.
Grindhouse and Grindhouse and slow burn kind of John Carpenter, style. But that was using the camera system first. I was first exposed to on Planet Terror, and spent time at Pixar, as you mentioned, and got to work, with Brad Bird on the incredible sequel. And Pixar is a great training ground for storytelling, even though the content is very different than the kind of films that we're making. It's storytelling is storytelling, and there's a lot to learn from those Pixar guys. So
I don't think they've put out a bad movie. I mean, they're pretty well written.
Yeah, they really get the kinks out. Their whole process is they get the kinks out. They take the time.
I love that, and all of that background has to help you when you're doing your own projects, because at least you're not worried about how to do something.
That's
Actually
right.
doing it, you might have, you got to do it, but you're not worried about how to do it because you've worked on stuff before, so you know how it's supposed to work. You just have to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's room for big movies and small movies, and even if when I sit down and watch a film for pleasure, it's probably going to be an old noir, or it's going to be an indie, or it's going to be horror. There's room for these tent poles. I think both can live harmoniously. So on one hand, I'll work on films like Prometheus, where I spent a year with the crew in London working on that for Ridley, and then I'll come back and I'll shoot something very small that's curated to my tastes, and I think there's room for both.
Yeah, for sure. Jet, what about you? Do you have? I know you've done some of the producing side of it. Do you have aspirations to step behind the camera at some point?
I have aspirations for everything. Actually, funny enough, I never thought I would write, but Mike and I have written our next project, actually. So I'm very much into a different genre now. I can't reveal too much of that, otherwise Mike's gonna get very angry at me.
You gotta wait till it's time. You're just doing this one right now.
Yeah, but we have our next project, and we're very excited about getting that underway. But our first project together was Hotel Dunsmuir, and it's just a great little supernatural thriller, totally different than a pulpy, film noir, Peter 5A, and that's on Tubi and some other platforms, I believe right now. But yeah.
Tubi's pretty great that they came along, because they show a lot of independent stuff that you wouldn't normally get to see, at least for free, because you basically watch that for free with some ads, which isn't too bad. I mean, that's how I grew up watching TV anyway. You didn't have the option of not watching the ads growing up. So
That's right.
True. It's true. And I should give Jet I should give Jet a plug here. She's also got a film that's a Tubi original, not just on Tubi, but it's called The Vigilante. She's fantastic in that. I had no involvement in that one, but she's in another
is it based
movie on
anything?
Tubi worth watching called The Vigilante.
Is it from a book, or what's that from?
So it's actually on a very important topic, very similar, and it was shot right around the time of The Sound of Freedom, and it's about child sex trafficking in the US. And my character's little sister goes missing, and my character happens to be a Marine spec op. So she goes undercover, and she does her thing to get her sister back. So it's very intense. It has a lot of action. Did you
have to train?
I trained. I had weapon training. I had stunt training. I had a lot of physical training for this part. It was badass. I loved it.
I've always thought that there's probably actors out there that would make decent spies. I mean, we've got all these movies where actors are supposed to be spies. And I'm like, they've done all this training. How hard would it be to train them to be a spy?
It's true. And
just acting, right? It's just acting.
They've already done all of it. They just have to do it for real.
Yeah.
But, that would actually make a great movie, Mike.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
actor turned spy.
Oh, that sounds like a comedy right there, doesn't it?
I'm guessing Kevin Hart's already done it.
His new
Coming to
Netflix
Netflix real soon.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Oh, shoot. So you mentioned the soundtrack. Talk a little bit about that. Who wrote it for you? Where'd you kind of choose your music from?
Yeah, so we have a great composer on it named Harvey Davis, and
Yeah.
Harvey's fantastic, talented cinematic musician, and it's all original. This is an entirely original soundtrack. If the film finds an audience, I'd love to put this out as a soundtrack
Yeah.
and really honor Harvey's work. And he immersed himself in the period, and he immersed himself in a certain style of score cue that you get in these films. And that was one of the mandates, is that if the style of acting is in the pulp melodrama style, you need a period score to go with it, or else it doesn't work. If you put a modern score
Right.
with that style of acting, it's going to fall apart. So the whole thing has to congeal together as one thing. And so the score is a big character in the picture, and his cues are just fantastic,
Yeah,
all
I
original.
love that because you're right. If the music isn't right, it can throw the whole movie off.
Absolutely,
The
yeah.
music is its own character.
Yeah, it
it,
really is. Yeah,
it is.
I won't mention what it was, but I just watched something pretty good show, but I didn't like the music, and
Yeah,
it kind of it took away from my enjoyment of the film. And the reason that, or the show, the reason that it didn't it didn't fit. It wasn't necessarily that it was bad music; it was fine. It
yeah.
just didn't fit the show, and it took away from my enjoyment of
It's a big part of it. I couldn't
it.
agree more. And these elements have to work in harmony, and they have to synchronize with each other, and they have to amplify each other, and the whole thing has to work as a whole. And especially something like this, which is a modern film rendered with a 1940s brush, if we are tonally off on any one of those elements, it can't cast a spell. So that all of these elements have to work in parallel with one another. And Harvey did a fantastic job on the score.
Yeah, that's terrific. I think for a movie to be really good or great, all that stuff has to work kind of well. If you got one element that's not working right, it can mess the movie up.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I definitely have to give credit to our editor, Nigel
Yeah,
Galt,
yeah.
and I think Michael can speak to this as well. Nigel comes from the Stanley Kubrick estate. He was actually authorized at the end of Eyes Wide Shut to be the sole, to be the sole person that brings the movie to fruition. When Stanley died tragically at right at the end of
Yeah.
filming. And actually, I think it was Tom Cruise that stepped in at the studio and said the only one who knows the vision of Stanley is Nigel Galt. And so we have the editor of Eyes Wide Shut for Peter 5A,
Amazing.
and between him and Mike, they did a fantastic job of cutting it and making it very intense. Every scene is very snap and pop. There's no boring lag in it at all, which is so
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah. Real pleasure working with Nigel. We love the man. He was the sound editor on Full Metal Jacket. He was the picture editor on Eyes Wide Shut. And when you work on Stanley Kubrick film, you're working at Stanley's estate in the UK. And so he was under the same roof as Stanley for about 6 years. And if you're like me, you're interested and obsessed with Kubrick. There's no better wellspring of knowledge than Nigel. He's got all the stories, and it was fantastic. And like us, he loves the source material. He loves these old films. Every night, Nigel sits down and he watches an old film. Often including Stanley's films, and so he understood how to cut it to get the rhythms of the 40s, and how to get the rhythms of pulp melodrama noir. So absolutely, as Jet mentioned, we had a great editor, and he was a big part of it.
Yeah, one of the parts about those older movies that I always enjoyed was they didn't lag. You know, the story kept moving forward the entire time. There wasn't a point where you're like, maybe they could have cut that. They
There's
could have
no
shortened
yeah.
that up a little bit. You didn't have that back.
Yeah. Oh, Bogey and the Maltese Falcon. Oh, I mean, just talk about the creme de la creme of the film noir detective, Pulp Fiction. It all cuts. It's very high drama and then cut to
That's
cut to
right.
cut to cut. And
There's no fat in those movies. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's
and,
no,
and they, yeah, and they
where
leave.
there's no filler like it used to
Yeah.
be with the back when TV shows would go 26 or so episodes a year. They'd have those filler episodes
Yeah.
that didn't really connect with anything else, but they were just trying to get the number of episodes. We don't have any of that with these movies.
True.
No filler.
Yeah, they lack interest after a while, and it's also, it speaks just to a greater point of what's going on in the industry. Films have just become unfun. They've become unwatchable. They've become boring or very very sad, very dreary, and it's not what the American audience wants to watch. And so Mike, going into this, Mike and I going into this, we he always has this great sort of axiom he tells me is I want this to be an entertaining movie. I want people to have fun, to get freaked out, this whatever, but I want it to be entertaining. It doesn't need to have a message one way or another. It's whatever you think happened at the end of the movie, and that's the real, that's what movies should be about.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, I say that a lot to my wife. We have that discussion. There was a period of time where everything had a happy ending, and I remember thinking, you know what? Maybe sometimes it shouldn't end happy, or maybe it should be bittersweet. I was like, why don't they ever do that? Well, then at some point, that's all they started to do. So you never had everything. You didn't leave, a show or a movie necessarily feeling good. You may have enjoyed it, said, oh, that was really good, but you didn't have that kind of, oh, that was awesome, and just be kind of pumped up the rest of the day because of that. So I'm all for that. If we can get at least some of our stuff where the ending leaves you kind of, and I won't say uplifted, it doesn't always have to end happy, but it leaves you in a good mood when you leave.
I completely agree, and this is a trend I've noticed in films is that they've really been taken over by to a certain extent politics, and to a certain extent this notion that there's something you have to learn or you have to endure, and to me a film is not something to endure. A film is something to enjoy. They're a little pill you take that should give you pleasure for 2 hours, and that doesn't mean it has to be rainbows and kittens.
That's right.
It can be a horror film.
What kind of pill did you give them?
When I watch The Shining, The Shining is a pleasure pill. I'm in a happy place when I watch that. When I watch Halloween, it's a pleasure pill. So that it's not necessarily about the content in the film, it's how it's presented. And the goal for me is to create a pleasurable experience for the audience, even if there's dark subject matter, even if there might be some violence, even if there might be a happy ending or not. The goal is not to make the audience suffer, and I think a lot of filmmakers have a different approach on that.
Yeah, completely agree with that. So where can we watch Peter 5/8?
Well, Peter 5/8 is going to be released in limited theatrical on March 22nd. So we still have a little bit of time to go.
It'll be here before we know it, though.
It's coming right up. Absolutely. So we're opening limited. We hope we'll go wider after that. And then, it'll eventually be on all the streaming platforms. But the initial
I love
release,
that you're getting a theater release, though. I mean, that's not a given anymore.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we fought for that. It's going to be in the major cities. So I know the West Coast, New York, LA, Atlanta, Texas, Chicago, Detroit, Chicago. But it's going to be in the major, in a portion of the major cities. So
That's
So
exciting. I'm
we fought
supposed
for
to
that.
be I'm supposed to be in LA late March, so I'll cross my fingers.
Yes, in theaters in LA and in other major cities. So yes, we fought for the in theaters, movies, bring people back to the cinema.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I grew up with. I grew up looking forward to the new releases every week, and you go and watch them in the big screen, and it's not content. It's not just a mass of content that's like a fire hose shooting at you on your television constantly. It's a certain number of films every week that have a specialness to them.
Right.
And when you sit there and give it your full attention, you think about it. You not only think about it later that day, you might think about it the next week, and you might think about it years later. And I still remember every theatrical experience I had. And they stay with you. They stay with you, and it gives a specialness to the film. So we did fight for theatrical, and we hope we can go wider after our limited release.
Are you having a premiere? Do you get to do a red carpet?
I believe the distributor is working on that, and we don't have details to share on that yet, but they are putting that together.
So Jet, with that, because I've always said I couldn't act. I'd be a terrible actor. But if I did, I would stress out anytime I needed to like dress up, it would stress me out. So are you confident in your red carpet abilities, or do you have to get somebody to help you with the outfit?
I'm good at looking confident, I think. Even if things are falling around sideways, behind me, the sky is falling.
That's a skill.
Keep that face. I don't know if that's what I'm thinking on the inside, but at least I have a trained, confident face mode.
I definitely would have to have somebody dress me, because otherwise, I'm liable to show up in just something terrible.
Are we talking sweatpants here, or how bad are we talking?
I would hope that I wouldn't choose sweatpants, but this is coming from a guy that, back in the 80s, I was wearing like different colored parachute pants every day. It was bad.
That's a bold confession, Mike, but I appreciate
it. Goodness.
Yeah, every day. And like I had the matching members only jackets with it. Okay. It was a look. I mean, I wouldn't say a good look, but it was a look.
Well, everything comes back in style. So there might be some hipsters out there that are.
I kind of wish I'd held on to them. Members only jackets, like I had an ad come through Facebook the other day, I guess because I mentioned that I used to wear those all the time. I didn't even know they still made them, but they're out there. So.
Yeah, for sure. The hipsters would love that look.
Yeah. Parachute pants. I had some girl when I was in middle school said, "Hey, you look pretty good in those pants," and I wore them, for years.
got a lot of mileage out of it.
That's funny.
Oh, shoot. Well, thank you both for taking a little bit of time with me. This has been terrific. The movie's Peter 5/8, so we're looking at March 22nd. Is that right? When it's in the limited release, and then
March
it's going
22nd.
to explode
in theaters.
That's
yes,
right.
Kevin Spacey comeback movie in theaters this March 22nd.
I know that's enough right there, but then you add in like the rest of the cast and the fact that you've got a great score, all this stuff working for you. I mean, that's a must-see movie for me.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you can catch it on the big screen, Mike.
I do too. I'm hopeful. We haven't finalized the trip yet, but I know it's going to be around the end of March, so that should be pretty close.
Looking good. All right.
Be pretty close.
Awesome.
So a couple of things before we wrap up. Jed, I'll start with you. Anything? I know you've got the other movie we talked about, but anything else you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Well, yes. Apart from Hotel Dunsmuir and The Vigilante that you can see on Tubi and those other streaming, I actually have the bigger project that I'm working on, that me and Mike are working on, and it's we have to be super secret about it right now.
What's the genre for that one?
The what?
What's the genre for it?
You know, it's still too early to say. We
Okay.
can't really
Won't even
reveal
let
that.
me say that.
You know it's early if you can't say the genre.
I'm sorry. I'm on with the director. I can't say anything. Bring me back on next time alone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you got to come back, Jet. We'll do this again for sure. In the meantime, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Jet Jandreau. Please check me out.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's all. Yeah, and you do. You come right up when you put that in. So Mike, how about you? Anything else that you're working on other than the movie that that we can't say the name of?
Well, so there's a new project in development.
The
And,
movie that shan't be named at the moment.
that shall not be named. Yeah,
That's a great title.
I'd probably go see that.
Fancy name. That shall not be named.
Yeah, so there'll be some fun reveals on that soon. We're playing the cards close to the chest on that one.
Yes, soon.
But as Jet mentioned, the film, there's another film we shot in the same area as Peter prior to Peter 5/8, which is again a much smaller film. This is a micro budget film, but if anyone's curious to check that out, that's called Hotel Dunsmuir, and that's available on all the streaming platforms as well as free to watch on Tubi. And then March 22nd, Peter 5/8.
That's a pretty good year. I mean, that's exciting. I say, where can we find you, Mike, on social media?
You know, I don't do social media. I may change my thinking on that at some point, but
you may have to if you keep putting movies out.
It's true. So I've heard. I've been.
I mean, you could do like a production company. Do it that way. You wouldn't have to have
something like that. Yeah, I just find, especially when I'm in a creative process working on something, if I'm looking at social media, I don't get anything done. So
well, we all have that problem.
So I'm a ghost on the internet, but hopefully people can see this film coming out and more projects to come after that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you both of you. Open invitation, together or by yourselves, whenever you have something, just reach out.
Fantastic.
We'll put you back on. It'll be great, and keep me posted about the movies, because if I'm out somewhere and they're showing, I gotta go.
Well, I want to come to your neck of the woods and watch old movies with you and your mom. That's
well,
what
come on.
All right,
we'll do it here at the. We can hold like 20 people in the studio.
All right,
you come and we'll let you pick the movies. We'll just watch.
Oh, I would curate. I would curate for you anytime. So that sounds fun.
I will provide. Well, I will get somebody to provide the food. You don't want to eat my food, but if you pick the movies, I'll provide the food. Jet, you can come too. We'll make it a whole thing.
All right.
I will provide the chips and dip. That's
perfect. There we go.
Jet's bringing chips. Okay. We have a plan.
Thank you both so much. This has been the best. Congratulations on finishing the movie. It sounds amazing, and what a cast. I think it's going to do so well.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a real pleasure.
So
yeah, it's been terrific. Okay, hold on one second. That was the creative team behind Peter 5/8. I hope you'll check this movie out. Mike and Jet were terrific, and Jet, it sounds so much prettier when she says her name than when I do with my terrible West Virginia accent. So I appreciated her indulgence with that. Been looking forward to that one for a while. I think Jet's such a talented actress. Mike does such a terrific job on the writing, directing, and the effects side. Just a talented pairing, and it doesn't surprise me that they've done several movies together. Seems like it's working really well. So the movie's Peter 5/8. It comes out in limited release on March 22nd. So keep your eye out for that. Hopefully it just kind of explodes. I think it might, because it's so well written, so well acted. I think it could get a wider release, so keep your eye out. If it doesn't, that means it's going to be coming to streaming. You'll be able to catch it there. So keep an eye out on our social media, and we'll update you when that's coming out. Terrific cast. Whatever your feelings are with Kevin Spacey. You know, his trial ended successfully for him, and thankfully he's back acting. I think we can all agree, talented guy. So happy to have him back. Rebecca De Mornay, I think one of the best actresses from the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. She's just terrific, and still, when she is on screen, kind of commands the screen. Just a really talented group of actors that they have in this film, and they're not the only ones. If you go down through the cast, it's loaded just with really talented people. So please check that out. Support the film. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you. We're so happy that you're here. There's a couple of easy ways you can support us if you're interested. They're free. If you're a watcher, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please just subscribe. That's all we ask, is that you subscribe. You'll find over 700 episodes there. So there's tons of stuff to watch, tons of people to get excited about. You know, I would put our guest list up against anybody's. I think we've had just an amazing group of guests. So you can check that out there, MeisterCon Pod on YouTube. If you listen, just wherever you listen to your podcast at, just subscribe to us there, and that'll help us as well. You can find I think we're actually at 720 right now, so you can find all of those, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. We'll also let you know if we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, for catching or checking out a convention. Anything we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. So check us out there. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, recently named us a top 100 podcast. I can't believe it, but it happened. 16 million podcasts and growing every day to be named a top 100. Kind of amazing. Just so thankful for that. And that's all due to all of you. So thank you so much. It's even easier to support us on IMDb. You go to imdb.com, pull up the Too Opinionated podcast page. That's it. Just that traffic on our page really does help us out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again with us this week. Appreciate you so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Too Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. You know, not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. You know, those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.